All right, so here you are on Newsfile, and a couple of your messages. Musa Abator in Kumasi says that I entirely agree with Dr. Raymond, Professor Raymond Atuguba. He said it, so let's do it for him. Let's not act like the ostrich. We know what's happening in respect of judgment, which has political undertones over the years. Kwame in UK says, I'm here cracking, you mean to say racking your brains, trying to fathom what triggered the need for that research by Professor Atuguba. Can he please publish the methodology used so we can critically assess and make sense out of the research? Okay, he spoke about the methodology, but like you say, good to publish. Kofi Ata in Cambridge says that the attack on the research work of Professor Atuguba by the justices of the Supreme Court is very unfortunate and tantamount to stifling academic freedom. Kwesi Akufo in Subin, Kumasi says, I suggest the General Legal Council accredit the established law faculties, i.e. Legon, KNUSC, and GIMPA, to run the professional programs for their LLB graduates, while the law school at Makola admits students from the other law faculties across the country. We will be making some progress if we adopted this approach. Well, as you know already, they have a campus, two campuses in the places that you mentioned. Now, Benjamin Osei says that the comments from the judges in reaction to the research was apt. Professor Atuguba should give some respect to our dear judges and should not make inferences from a research that seems to suggest they have no minds to assess and pass judgment on issues on their own, except by a regime that appointed them. Okay, so sometimes that's a danger, depending on how much you understand what has been done, then your comments to may not
but
fit.
something.
Yes.
I'm told that whilst the full report itself was not presented, also how the analysis of the individual cases was done was also not disclosed.
How the analysis, the methodology was not disclosed.
Was also not disclosed.
All right, that's interesting. But on that note, do you guys support the president being divested with the power to appoint justices of the superior courts?
No, I don't.
You don't? You have the benefit of being the Deputy Attorney General?
Yes, I don't, because I don't think that any other mode of appointment will necessarily guarantee the independence of the judges.
Justice Emil Short is advocating that.
I saw it.
I also wants that.
I think it is wrong. In the United States of America, the president appoints the Supreme Court justices.
Right.
They are, confirmed, and they are still independent.
Yes.
I have always been a proponent of being who we are in the public space.
Okay.
They must begin to accept that I am MPP and he's NDC and Kweku is pseudo CPP. Hey! Did I withdraw?
That's okay.
And that we can work together.
Right.
For the good of a central core.
Right.
Certain tenets ought to be common to all of us. Right. And we should be aiming towards that.
I agree with you. I keep saying you don't have to be neutral to be impartial. It is possible. Who says it's not possible? Okay. And one of my producers has a testimony about that. There was a panel of judges I was on, and he didn't like what I did to him. Okay, because he's in a law school. Right. Now, Martin Amidu, start with Kweku on this. There are people who say, well, he did so well. There are those who say, well, there's no doubt that he's more than qualified for the job, but he showed a temperament that suggests that he's not qualified for such a job. In fact, the MPs, one of them voted against his approval.
Yeah. When I found out, because initially we were told it was as he was totally unanimous and everything. Interesting, I was with the MP, this Alassane Sohini on Metro TV Good Morning Show, and he disclosed that he was the only one who dissented. I thought it was that mark of courage for a young man at his level, a young legislator. He disagrees, he puts it out there, in spite of the fact that his colleagues on the minority side who belong to the committee didn't share his...
Do you agree with him? He says that Martin Amidu is overqualified, yet on certain scores, he finds that he should not be the one to be giving that job.
I disagree with his reasoning.
Okay.
But I admire his courage to say that, look here, I'm not going to go along with the wave. And this is my reason why, and sticks there. I admire that.
So was Martin not unnecessarily difficult during the vetting? Was he not unnecessarily emotional, getting angry unnecessarily? Things were said in jest. He took them so serious.
Yes, but when I read through this Act 959, none of the things you've raised
temperament
disqualifies him. So I really won't make that point. I've made the point that nobody is perfect. Martin, who I've known for close to 40 years or so, is not a perfect human being and has his weaknesses here and there. No doubt about that. And some showed at the vetting. But if you aggregate, if you were to and it's legitimate to raise those issues and interrogate them. Indeed, I believe that the end effect will be helpful for him as he listens to us and people who are raising all those things. You remember initially I made the point that this kind of office, its nature, its everything could tame him also. So I don't have a problem at all. Those who are interrogating those weaknesses or those issues about temperament, emotional instability, all those things are legitimate. They
you say tame. His friends say he will walk out of that office within the first few cases.
No, if he did walk out based on interference, unwarranted, and not in accordance with this act, I will stand up and salute him. It will be good for this country.
But just a bit about where you said, when you look at the act, the qualification that he needs to have do not include the things on the basis of which Suhuyini voted against him. He will tell you there's one.
Which is?
He's supposed to be a person of high moral integrity.
High moral character and proving integrity.
And proving integrity, just like a judge.
Yeah.
And he had disclosed or admitted that there were certain allegations of corruption and thievery he made against the Mahama administration that were on mere perception.
Well, we take the corruption perception index of Transparency International so serious in this country. They say perception, and yet we take them serious. I'm not saying perception is not entirely useless. Indeed, before the announced thing, people were using perception as a basis to say that there was corruption in the judiciary. In fact, the Parliament of Ghana had a report to that effect. Only for proper investigations to bring it out. But I'm saying that he's not perfect. So some showed. You remember I had a running debate with him on this program relative to the Tiger Eye announcing, if you recall.
Right.
You put him on the phone and I was seated here.
Yeah.
We had very serious debate. Beyond that, we still kept our friendship. He's not perfect. But I'm saying that those areas, if you even aggregate them, create a critical mass of the human failings of Martin Amidu and put it together, it will still not disqualify him relative to what is here. That's the point I am making. And that is why all the members of the committee, with exception of one, voted for him. At least, unless that too is not true. And they are now going to present it to the House. Obviously, in spite of that, there could still be debate. Even if you say people should be vote by consensus or majority decision, unanimity, they still can discuss. They still debate. Yes, I have a couple of examples in parliamentary history here, answered in this country. And I'm sure Muntaka will help me out of that. So to be honest with you, I think he performed, you see, it's his character. That character that some people are worried about is fit for purpose. The corruption in this country, that monster called corruption, right from the Nkrumah days to today, and how we've tackled it, we've used guns and things, we are still back almost to square one, dealing with it. So those who find him a bit unpredictable, temperamental, that if he will walk out because somebody interferes, I said that man is fit for purpose. That's the way I see it. If you want us to go into specifics, then we can. But the question you asked me...
Do some of it, just a bit of it.
Well, you see, for instance, the question of the perception thing. You take the Charlotte Osei and President Mahama's issues. the answer he gave within the platform, on that platform, I think was key. He had to. The Charlotte Hesses thing, what was he supposed to do? Was he supposed to rehash the things he had said? When indeed we have a CJ committee at this time sitting on the matter, on issues, some of which connect that matter. I don't know whether you know that some of the allegations, of course, they've been thrown into the dustbin. I'm not sure what I'm entitled to say, but some of them come up with electoral things, attempt to influence the Electoral Commission in the direction of the NDC, dismissing some district officers who are perceived to be MPP, posturing that was sending this country into some insecurity because of how she was managing the election.
Okay, the Chief Justice has cautioned against discussing the material
that's
before
why I was
that committee.
Seeking guidance from you, in the sense, but exactly. So if he was to respond to that question and to elaborate, what you are cautioning me against would have happened there too.
How about those other matters? And those other allegations that he simply said because the people were not present in Parliament?
Yes.
And the accusation,
yes,
the counter to him is that when you were making those publications and speaking to them on the media, what do you mean? See, the people didn't have to be with you. And you went ahead and made the allegations.
I like the vetting and the openness of it. It's a form of therapy. It helps all of us. He's not the first person to appear before Parliamentary Vetting Committee and make retractions and apologies or give some rationalization. It's not. But it's very helpful because once you get there and you are questioned, the answer you give itself helps all of us to put you in a certain level. I am saying, for instance, the Tiger Eye Anas thing.
Right.
He said Anas is not there for me to rehash all those things. But at least there are two things I said. For instance, the service passport thing. Anas himself considered publicly, confirmed it. But since then, do you know what has happened between the two of us? Huh? And a lot has happened. So why should he come to the committee and rehash those things? I'm not complaining about those who asked the question. That's your right. They could ask the question. But the answer he gave, I say, was appropriate. Did you hear him refer to Ajet Assam as corrupt?
Ajet Nsawam.
Ajet Nsawam as corrupt. Where is that coming from?
Of course,
the work of the Anas.
Right.
So what it means is that as a human being, over a period, reflecting on all the issues, getting details. Don't forget he contested the Anas methodology and legality. But he's come to the conclusion that, look here, at the end of the day, this is what happened. That work had some value for the state of Ghana. So to be honest with you, my view is that those who you can decide to take all those weaknesses, put them together. It is not enough for us to disqualify, to suggest that he's not suitable or competent enough for the job. Otherwise, Muntaka them should tell me how come they decided that he should go through.
Okay. Well, you surprised me the most in the interrogation that he went through. Okay, the questioning. Because I found you to be very calm and yet very effective in doing what we typically do in court by way of cross-examination. You ruffled him, and I have said that we lawyers enjoy it. When you get a stubborn witness, you are excited to ruffle them, get them angry and agitated, and then get them unsure of what they want to say. I think you achieved that with him. So how come you were part of the unanimous people in approving them when you didn't seem satisfied with the answers he gave you?
Well, thank you very much. I mean,
not unanimous. Okay, those who approved them.
Let me say this. I've had the greatest privilege of sitting on that committee since 2005, and I've seen people come and go, and I've learned one cardinal principle on the appointment committee from senior ones till some of us became seniors. You don't allow your emotions to determine how you vote for that person. You need to have a set of rules as we go to vet. What are we looking for? What line is it that when he crosses, for this line, I will not accept based on this principle.
Okay.
And unfortunately for me, despite all what happened, like Senator Gogobako was saying, if I look at the Act, if I look at the Constitution, if I look at our standing orders, I will not be fair to my conscience to vote against him.
Okay.
Because he did not do anything, or all he did not from any of all the things that you may say for me are subjective. If you say, oh, he was too temperamental, do we really measure someone's temperament before we approve the person as Supreme Court judge or a minister or whatever? Because if it is this temperament, believe me, when we vetted the Minister for Agric, everybody saw it. The temperament was erratic. But it is not part of the criteria that as a house or as a member of the committee, you can use if you want to. Because everybody, as we sit there, you can decide to say that, I won't ask him questions. But when it comes to voting, I don't want him.
And this is a root intervention. In terms of temperament, if you go back to the Hansards of the years ago, you see the issue of when they were vetting Busumtri Sam for Deputy Minister for Interior, Tony Edu for Deputy Minister for Defense. Some people raised those issues.
So he wants to equalize.
No, it's not equalization. No, please.
It gives you the documents.
I'm not doing that.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just saying that we don't use.
Thank you. I'm only reinforcing
as a member of
your
that
point.
committee. Okay. We don't, because if you have something that is in the Act, if it's in the Constitution, it's in our standard order, it fends you.
No, beyond the questions of temperament, you were able to push him.
Yes, I was able to.
Unexpected.
And I was able to prove it to
you asked him why, when he had all that information at the time, he didn't go to the police or the whatever. And he said, well, he knew he was working against people who had the backing of the state. And you said, okay, so you are trying to say that the security cannot be relied upon. You are coming to work with them, are you not? And then you could see he had a difficulty answering that. You were not satisfied with that. So it's not about only temperament. So why did you approve him?
But I can't doubt his capability to work in the office. I can't doubt whether what we want in a special prosecutor is not in him. Those other things, like I said, like it's a scale. When I put all the issues that I think were negative, and I wasn't satisfied on
positive outweigh them.
And then I put the positive outweigh. So I find myself in a very difficult position with my conscience to say I won't vote for him. That was why I voted for him. But believe me, there were a lot of things that I thought that he was, even at a point in time, was evasive towards my questions. And that was not good. And I could have gone on and on and on. But remember that all the things that all of us do, we try to do it in the national interest. I cannot imagine that a special prosecutor will have everything that I, as a member of parliament, expect. So I pardoned some of the things, and at one time I even thought that if I continue, because there were many other things that I wanted to say, but I thought that maybe if I go into those areas, at the end of the day, he goes to sit as special prosecutor and may not really augur well for us as a state. But believe me, I wasn't satisfied at all with the question, but I have to vote for him.
Okay, now, YB, you
can I just say this before we move on? I stand on that, I think order 172. A lot of people think that, oh, this one is going to be a walkover in Parliament.
You have already approved him.
No, we have not.
The report has to come.
And you know the interesting thing about our rules? I voted for him at the committee. I could come to the floor and vote against. Sure. Because now what we are going to do
playing the devil advocate, provoking you to take
what we are going to do, if you look at our standard orders, when it comes to appointments committee, we are 26 members. Once one person decides otherwise, you can only do that by secret ballot on the floor of Parliament. And you know what secret ballot can do? It can mean that all the 26 or 25 who voted for him could go to the floor and speak against him and vote against him. And the rules of the House allows you to change your mind between the committee and the floor. I'm not saying that that's what members will do. But most importantly, members should know the way they are saying, oh, unanimous. No, he has to go through voting, unfortunately, on the floor of the House. And it has to be secret ballot. maybe Tuesday, Wednesday. And it is my wish that
no, secret ballot,
maybe
if somebody calls for it.
Okay.
Or
No.
So thank you. Let's have Yao,
you
know, Bobby someone also have his say. Now there's Mauli Kofi Biako, who says, I guess from listening to Kekubako, he's suggesting that we may get a surprise that the deputy special prosecutor will be announced Arameyao announced. I think though that he may not qualify by virtue of the number of years he has agreed to be at the bar. 10 years. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. I have to say, most of the people seem to say the critical examination of the nominee was done by the minority, and the majority didn't appear to, want to do a thorough work. That's the criticism out there.
Depends on what you define as thorough work. But I have to say this, irrespective of how it's taken. I think before Martin was Nanado, His Excellency the President. This is probably coming from, a dyed-in-the-wool anti-corruption campaigner. It's the most audacious move an African president could make. Appoint somebody of the other divide. And not just somebody of the other divide, but as the vetting went, somebody with some challenges as to emotional intelligence. Over the years. It's
someone who refuses to see his boss as his boss. He said Obeda Samuel was never his boss. They were equals.
He said he was his deputy. In that he talks of he was his deputy.
Yeah.
The boss was being in present tense. He said he's not my boss.
Yeah.
But if you go there, he say I was his deputy. Very interesting.
So the Attorney General is not going to be his boss.
Yes, this is a man who has never been afraid to say his mind. It doesn't matter the environment he's in, and his antecedents were very harsh as far as corruption, fighting, and control are concerned. And yet, the president was bold enough. And it's not as if he's met him behind closed doors or anything. And Marty himself said it, that he's spoken to the president probably twice on the phone since the nomination and all that, or even before the nomination, once before the nomination and after also. He's spoken to him on the phone twice. So, Nanado is going purely on the question of restoring trust in fighting corruption.
Some of the people in the NPP, including those in parliament, say he will mess him up.
Let me confess. On the day of the appointment, I had just walked out of a cash for seat sitting and spoken to the media. And as I swiveled from the interview, one of the young men ran to me and said, Marty is a special prosecutor. It didn't click. I was walking away. And then the young man said, oh, the president has nominated Nsawam as a special prosecutor. What do you say? I ran away from the mic.
I see.
I had to collect my thoughts. And what has the president done? That's what I thought. What has the president done? Indeed, if we are going to... This is a special purpose vehicle targeted at politically exposed persons, the cognoscenti of our country, who literally control the processes where we find most of the corruption. And it's a very bold move. Having said that, however...
without rudely interrupting, where I disagree with you is that, believe me, by the time the president was considering Martin, he has seen Martin to be even worse than an MPP person against NDC.
Well,
because of his utterances and his composure, I will fight them with my last gun.
Okay, we have gone over that.
Well, one can say,
we have gone over that.
But I am convinced now, having watched his vetting, and it's on 3 grounds. The first is that I don't think when it comes to the law, he's erratic at all. After watching the vetting, I am convinced that only Martin, as a first-time special prosecutor, can establish this office properly in the milieu in which we operate. He has the cojones. You know what the cojones are? He will translate for you. He has the cojones to establish this office in our singular environment where everybody is connected to everybody and we all tolerate this cancer, which is destroying our nation. Having said that, 3 things that happened at his vetting. that convinced me that he's the right man. He said, in reaction to one of the political questions about whether he was MPP and DC, whether he was in witch hunting or otherwise, that he would have to operate on the basis of the law. That he can just get up and prosecute corruption on the basis of reports. He had to have reliable witness statements, and he had to go to court according to the processes. That means that having been Attorney General for so many years, and his own inclinations, having fought corruption in court before the Supreme Court, he is very alert to the need to establish rule of law as the basis. And if it's rule of law, I think we all have fair opportunity before the courts to establish our cases. That's the first thing. Yes. The second thing he said that impressed me was that he was not out to railroad people into jail, and that he is going to focus on plea bargaining.
Recovery and prevention and recovery. Yes, in the law. It's in the law.
Yes, it's captured in the Act. Indeed, he was part of the process. I was part of the process, the Constitutional and Legal Committee, which considered this bill. When we were discussing plea bargaining, I even wanted it not to go before the courts, that it should be graduated. The people come before you in certain instances, you negotiate with them, they do reparation, and you leave it at that. But it was said that if it's done in darkness, it could lead to corruption. Because then we didn't even know who was coming to be the special prosecutor. And so plea bargaining is done before the courts, and the appropriate thing done in terms of recovery. It's been done in Saudi, that luxury prison, and Nigeria. They do it. So it's very important, the recovery of the proceeds. The third thing I was very impressed about was that he had an interesting take on assets a declaration in public. A very political take, that you don't want to
expose and also push people away. Okay.
And therefore, he didn't think that we were ready. Even though left to he himself with his minor assets, he as a person would be willing. But then, in the larger context of the debate around that matter,
he doesn't have the support of the anti-corruption campaigners on that score.
But to me, that he was willing with the kind of tag he had. You know, I'm assessing the man based on the tag he had before the vetting. The kind of tag he had, I thought he would just go all out and lash out. Hey, please, put everything out in public and let me chase them, more or less. You understand? But the man had a nuanced approach. And I thought that, wow, this man, he has his thing about him.
Okay.
So if I have any regrets for this appointment, and hopefully I believe Parliament will pass it. If I have any regrets, it's that my committee and Parliament, we haven't done a job diligent enough to protect that office. Because probably for several portions of it, we should have been very original and would not have had these challenges. And I'm talking about, I've listed them here, I'm talking about the tendency to just lift previous legislation and incorporate it into new legislation.
So I was talking about
we should have been very careful. And you're looking at paragraph 1, the issues of being a body corporate and all that. We are trapped there a little. You go to 5, the establishment of the governing body, 5 to 12. Did we really need to establish a governing body along the lines of the old rules and all that and all that? Then you go to, of course, the tenure issues and all that. This was a special purpose vehicle. Probably we should have been bold enough to simply say we set up an office where the Attorney General authorizes and it is established. Yeah. You know, under Article 88.
What you mean is that would have avoided this suit.
This suit, and you know, my and because it's sub judice, we can't go too far. Right. But if the act had been foolproof, this suit would not have arisen at all. Of course, Martin has stated the defense in the I don't know whether it was during the vetting or after, but he said some things. I hope we can't go there. But otherwise, I would have raised the question about him being a political appointee and all that. But if we had had an act which simply said, take off from the beginning and say that under Article 88.4, the Attorney General is authorizing a special prosecutor to initiate, prosecute, etc., etc., and then we take it off from there. We would have had to crack our brains a little more in establishing the structures and all that and all that. But that's what we are there for.
Well, but you may need to take your time and read positions as espoused by, very compelling, by persons like Maxwell Opoku-Agyeman. You know, he's a senior law lecturer at the Ghana School of Law, to state that the architecture of this office does not lend itself to a public office. And so, well, as far as he's concerned,
I don't want to go there.
Maybe
I don't want to go there.
I
don't want to go
there.
Let's go to the matter. But all I can say to that is that it's a special purpose vehicle.
Okay.
And I dare say that even in contemplating the occupant of the office, many of the members of the committee thought we were going to go for a retired high court or a retired justice of the superior court.
Okay.
And therefore, at that time, the question of age and public officer and the constitution did not arise. That is why I'm sad that I was part of a process where we have literally...
By you on the floor of the House, did you follow the answer on all this? Go and check, because now it's part of the...
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Let's listen to Dominic now. Yes,
okay.
Yes, Doc.
I have just 2 points to make.
Okay.
One is in relation to the issue of integrity. And then I will also, say something briefly
No, but
about...
first, people are asking, why didn't you seek an injunction, an injunctive order, so that you would have injuncted the process, the vetting?
Well, I did a review of the law on this, and I realized that it might be very difficult, to seek an injunction against Parliament because of the general principle that Parliament is a master of its own procedure. And, yes, so it was going to be maybe an exercise in futility. But I know that under Order 93.1 of the Standing Orders of Parliament, okay, when a matter is sub judice, all right,
that's when the matter is before
the court, right? The person presiding will have to make a determination as to whether any action being taken by Parliament, for instance, a debate, on the matter.
Yeah, it says 93.1. Look, I've seen this before, and I looked everywhere in this thing. I didn't see it. Okay, 93.1 says that reference shall not be made to any matter of which judicial decision is pending in such a way as may, in the opinion of Mr. Speaker, prejudice the interests of the parties to the action.
All right.
Of course.
Okay. So my point is this. Because this was a suit challenging the eligibility and qualification of the person who was appearing before Parliament's committee, of appointments, okay, I thought that either the chairman of the committee, right, or Mr. Speaker, having been given notice of this suit, all right, would have said that in light of Order 93.1, okay, we'll have to stay action, because the only other action, there are 2 things that can happen. One is Parliament may say that they are disapproving of his appointment, or they are confirming of his appointment. Now, if Parliament confirms the appointment, what signal is it sending to the Supreme Court? Okay. No,
but you have asked that if he's approved,
right,
before the matter is determined and you are successful, they should annul the process.
Good. And so I anticipated that he might be approved, and if he's approved, the Supreme Court should declare his approval null and void. And
okay, so they vetted him and steered clear of discussing the matters of the suit.
But you see, the report will come to the plenary. I am not too sure if at plenary members are not going to raise issues regarding his eligibility.
Okay.
Especially with respect to the age.
Okay, so proceed to the...
the second thing that I want to say is with respect to the issue of integrity. Okay. When we were considering the bill, and I'm sure you will bear me out, we invited Martin Amidu, to submit a memorandum and appear before the committee because of the fact that he had, publicly made some comments about the bill. He did not appear before the committee, but he did write an opinion, a memorandum that he submitted to the committee. Now, something in that memorandum, he disagreed with the mode of appointment. And I'm going to, quote here. He says that the office of the special prosecutor is therefore being created by statute as part of the public services under Article 191D. But he was wrong there. It is actually Article 190, Clause 1D of, yeah, and then 195. 195 is on the appointment.
Yes.
All right. Or under Article 71E of the 1992 Constitution. Parliament cannot consequently, and in accordance with the separation of powers enshrined in the structure, design, and scheme of the letter of the Constitution, by legislation, purport to share in the unitary executive power of appointment committed to the President under the Constitution. Now, what he was simply saying is that under Article 195(1), it is the President who appoints on the recommendation of the governing board and in consultation with the Public Service Commission. Right? So he disagreed with the nomination by the Attorney General, acceptance by the the President, and then vetting by Parliament. So, that the fact that he submitted himself to that process raises questions about integrity. Okay. Because, you see, if you think that this is unconstitutional, that we are offending the Constitution by, designing the statute in a way that diverges from the constitutional, a framework, you do not submit yourself to the same process.
Is it not the case that how it has been done merely depart from what you are used to, and that is it is not unconstitutional?
It doesn't.
So he's submitting himself to it. Doesn't change
no
anything,
matter
really.
no matter how people argue about this so-called special purpose vehicle and all that, in his own memorandum, he said that the OSP can only be created within the context of Chapter 14 of the Constitution. There is no other provision of the Constitution that gives Parliament the power to create offices of a public nature except Article 191D. All right? So the whole notion that this is a political office that is alien to the Constitution, the Constitution, and therefore, cannot be subjected to Chapter 14, it's an argument.
Look at maybe a final point on the vetting. I don't want us to stay on and to have a suggestion that you are arguing your case before
that is so.
Newsfile.
Okay.
Right. So on the vetting itself, were you disappointed in where people said he was caught, flat-footed somewhat, about where he spoke about the northern culture or the culture in the 3 northern regions, where the elder is always right. And so when he was approached, by elders, he did not agree with the position they made to him, but he had to submit to that in the process leading to his resignation from government. And they questioned that. They said, okay, so when people, the OSP is pursuing certain persons, are you then suggesting that when elderly people come to you, you would give in? You would compromise?
Of course, when I heard it, I associated with the comment, because having grown up all my life in the North, and being a Northerner myself, I could understand why he was saying that, because that is the operating principle. Okay. However, in the context of governance, I was a bit disappointed that he would use that cultural principle as a justification, for legitimate official government action. For me, I think that when it comes to your work, whatever the office dictates, if it is backed up by law, is what you should do.
Okay.
Not succumb to suggestions by elders and and so on and so forth.
Well, eventually he said he had learned the lessons.
Of course, and I hope that if he's not disqualified, in light of what we have before the Supreme Court, he should take that into account in the work that he's coming to do.
Something I need to say.
You expect that he will be disqualified
by the Supreme Court?
No, as in the Parliament.
Oh, in Parliament, I don't think he will be disqualified. Okay. I think he will be approved.
Thank you.
I doubt it. We are at a stage where we have to be pragmatic. We need to operationalize this act.
Just give me 1 minute so that we go.
Yes, we need to operationalize.
But he's not the only person who can operationalize
We need to operationalize this act. Look, these things have happened before. In the last appointment of the EC chair, there were 2 suites pending in the Supreme Court. And the chair was appointed on a Sunday. Thereafter, we all know what happened. In the important election petition,
in the election matter, when the suits that were pending were consolidated, was there not an attempt to injunct that was refused?
Yeah, but the woman was appointed.
No, what I'm saying is that if there was an attempt to injunct and that was refused, then Parliament had the all clear to go ahead.
I'm not referring to Parliament now in the context of being stopped by this. Parliament is master of his own rules. Parliament will receive the report probably Tuesday or Wednesday, and Parliament will go ahead to consider that report. And it will be political suicide for Parliament not to accept that nomination. We will accept.
How do you say?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
All right.
Political suicide.
All right. In fact, with the EC matter that he refers to, there was also not an injunction order, and there was no. So people were saying that automatically the executive should have stayed its hands. But the other argument was that, well, the people who went to court never asked for an injunction. We'll take a break. We'll return to deal with cash for seats, is it?